the Young and the Restless Spoilers. Sharon sat alone in the dimly lit room of the rundown hotel in Genoa, her fingers trembling as she clutched the sides of her head. The muffled hum of the traffic outside only made the storm in her mind louder. Cameron's voice, sharp and unrelenting, echoed in her head, pushing her to the edge of madness. Why isn't Daniel dead yet? He's the one who caused all this trouble for us. Cameron's voice hissed, his anger fueling Sharon's spiraling thoughts. We've been after him all along. So why is he still breathing? Sharon's heart pounded in her chest, her breath shallow as she struggled to keep herself together. Cameron had always been a terrifying figure, a presence that lurked in the shadows of her past. She knew better than anyone how dangerous he was, how easily he could manipulate her into doing things she would later regret. But now, his voice wasn't just a memory, it was a constant, menacing force, pushing her to do unspeakable things. Get on with it. Cameron's voice demanded again, louder this time, sending a chill down Sharon's spine. You need to speed this up. Daniel shouldn't be here. He's the one who's been standing in our way, making everything so difficult. Sharon squeezed her eyes shut, trying to block out the sound of Cameron's voice, but it was no use. His presence was suffocating, and no matter how hard she tried to push him away, he was always there, reminding her of what needed to be done. Daniel had become the center of Cameron's obsession, his voice was filled with a dark rage every time he spoke of him. The problem was, Daniel had no idea what was coming. He was oblivious to the fact that he had become Cameron's next target. As far as Daniel knew, his only concern was protecting his daughter, Lucy, from Sharon's instability. He had no idea that Sharon's mind had already been poisoned, twisted by the relentless torment of Cameron's influence. For a brief moment, Sharon thought about Daniel and how much he cared for his daughter. It used to mean something to her, seeing a father so protective and devoted. But now, it was just noise, lost in the chaos that Cameron had unleashed in her mind. Sharon wasn't focused on Daniel anymore. He had become just another figure in the background, another problem that Cameron wanted to eliminate. Her attention had shifted, her mind warped by Cameron's demands. Daniel was no longer a person to her, he was an obstacle, something to be dealt with, sooner rather than later. What none of them realized was that Sharon wasn't in Arizona, as she had claimed. She had lied to everyone, Nick, Mariah, and Faith, all of them. They thought she had gone far away, isolated herself to heal, but in reality, she hadn't left Genoa at all. Instead, she had hidden herself away in this dingy, forgotten hotel, where the walls were thin and the windows barely kept out the cold. Sharon had managed to slip away from everyone who cared about her, convinced that they had stopped watching her. Nick, with his relentless concern, had tried to keep track of her every move. Mariah, always intuitive, had sensed something was wrong. Faith, though young, had an instinct that something was terribly off with her mother. But Sharon had outwitted them, or so she thought. She had cut herself off from them, disappearing into the depths of Genoa, thinking she was finally free from their prying eyes. But she wasn't. Unknown to Sharon, Nick, Mariah, and Faith were still keeping tabs on her, finding ways to monitor her actions. They knew she was lying about her whereabouts. Despite all her attempts to shake them off, they had figured out how to keep her within their sights. Every step she took was being watched, every move she made was under scrutiny. She had no idea how close they still were, how determined they were to save her from whatever dark path she was on. Inside the room, Sharon stood up abruptly, pacing back and forth, trying to shake the overwhelming anxiety that gnawed at her. Cameron's voice grew louder, demanding, unforgiving. You're not doing enough, he screamed inside her head. You're failing. Daniel is still alive, and you're wasting time. Sharon's hands trembled as she looked around the shabby room. The peeling wallpaper, the flickering light above her, it all felt like a reflection of her mind, deteriorating, crumbling under the weight of Cameron's control. She couldn't escape him. He was there, always there, and the only way to silence him was to do what he wanted. Her mind flashed to Daniel again. He was somewhere out there, probably with Lucy, thinking he was safe. He had no idea that Sharon, the woman he once knew, was no longer in control. The Sharon he remembered was gone, replaced by someone who was being driven by fear and a voice that wasn't her own. And Daniel, poor Daniel, had no idea that his time was running out.